So I wanted to make a video where I showed the progress of my Larry Walker 1990s collection, but I also wanted to give some tips around 90s cards that I learned when I was buying and picking these up that would be helpful for those that are just starting out. 1990s baseball cards are some of the most fun cards you're ever going to purchase. I'm more of a modern baseball guy, but I think 1990s are kind of better. I know that sounds terrible, but they're just more fun. They make more sense. The sets are more valuable. They're rare. They're hard to find. They're gorgeous. They actually were innovative. A lot of reasons why the 1990s cards are actually really great cards to target, especially particular sets, as they're very collected by 1990s collectors. So the very first card I want to show, it's going to be the biggest card in the video. This is a 1999 Metal Universe Gem Masters 1/1. This is Larry Walker's very best card in existence. The reason I'm showing this first is because this is kind of what got me started on this whole saga. And so I wanted to show it first because a lot of you know I already own this, and it would kind of explain my path to 1990s cards. I bought this one. I actually was a Larry Walker fan. I had a lot of lower end 1990s and 2000s Larry Walker cards, and when I saw this, I knew I had to have it because I'm a big Larry Walker fan, and I was able to purchase it off Instagram. I drove to St. Louis to pick it up. If you want to watch that video, I'll actually have it be the end screen of this video at the very end of this video so you can watch it. But either way, I bought this card, and it's been a great piece in my collection. This put me down a rabbit hole of going after Larry Walker cards, and this put me down a rabbit hole of learning all I could about the 1990s. This was 2 or 3 years ago, and it's been a blast. So one thing I'll note, you may challenge when I said this is his best card in existence. I fully believe that. There are the Flair Showcase. This is a legacy collection out of 100, but there are the 1/1s as well. There's 3 of them, a row 0, a row 1, and a row 2. The only real difference is the design slightly changes on the row 0, and then from the base card to the parallels, so this is the legacy collection, it just changes the foil to blue, or if the 1/1, it changes the foil to purple. So that slight change plus the fact there's 3 of them really hurts those cards. Like Jarek Jeter just sold, I think it was a row 1. This is a row 1 of Larry Walker on auction for about $20,000. That card, like if it was a Gem Masters, would be hundreds of thousands of dollars, to kind of give you an idea. So this got me started down this path. So what I want to do is I want to go through all of these cards, and then afterwards I'll give you the 10 different tips, but we'll go quick. This is just the cards I've picked up that I thought you might enjoy if you've been following the channel for a while. So here is a row 1 legacy. Here is a PMG. So now I have the full rainbow between this and the 1/1. Here's a nice credentials. Here's a really cool and a Hope Diamond from my favorite set, 2011 Topps. You know, Hope Diamonds are amazing. Unfortunately, it's not a Rockies uniform, but it's only the one Expos uni I have of Larry Walker. Here is a Flair Showcase from 2000. Here's a really cool one. This is the Radiance. This is numbered to 100. Gorgeous card. Actually really similar to the 1998 PMGs. Then we have the gold script out of 100. Then we have a beautiful Stadium Club co-signers from I think 1998 Stadium Club. Well, that's Andres Galarraga and Larry Walker. Then we have a golden anniversary gold out of 50. And then we have the Ultimate Victory Parallel 100. They're numbered to 100 and they're called Parallel 100. And that's a Jordan jersey number, so that's worth a ton of money, right? Well, with that being said, let's just go over these slab cards really quick. Here's a row 0 of 1998, forgive me, Flair Showcase. This is the Legacy out of 100. Then we have a really cool Platinum Medallion. I love that card. Really cool image of Larry Walker. That one's out of 99. Then this one, I don't know what it's out of. I think it's out of 52 or so, but this is the Red X Fractor. These are box toppers. Really rare cards, really gorgeous. This one's out of 50. This is just an X Fractor, numbered to 50. Really tough cards to find. Then we have the Man Refractor out of 75. This one has the coating, which I like. It does have some greening, which is unfortunate, but it's not that big of a deal to me personally. Then I have another Essentials Credentials. This is out of 95. This is 1999. Here's a cool one that's really tough to find. This is the StarQuest Gold. These StarQuest Golds, they're out of 100. It's from one of the lowest end sets in 1999, but these StarQuest Golds just don't pop up. I think there's like 3 or 4 total graded of Larry Walker and like less than 100 graded across all players on PSA's registry. They're tough, very tough to find. Then we have an Atomic Refractor PSA 10 from Bowman's Best. This one's out of 100. It's number 69. Then we have the Galaxy. This is one of the few Topps inserts I like from the 1990s that are numbered at least in this same way other sets were from other competitors. This one's out of 50. So that's the gold. Then we have the more rare stuff. This one's fun. This is the 1997 Finest Embossed Larry Walker Refractor Die Cut. These aren't serial numbered, but they're some of the best looking cards front and back from this whole era. And they go for a lot. There's about 50 of them made. They're very rare. I wish they would serial number them like they did in basketball. After that, we have this Red Crusade out of 25. Then we have the Mirror Gold, which is kind of like, for some people's eyes, the very best card of a player. PSA 9, which is cool. There's only 30 of those made, not serial numbered, but stated odds. Then we have a Star Rubies. This one's out of 50. This is a PSA 6, not a huge deal. One thing I like about 90s cards. Then here is a 24 karat gold of Larry Walker. This one's out of 24, really cool. And then we have the PMG. Here's a PMG from 1998 Metal Universe. This one's also out of 50. And then the last card is going to be this one right here. This is an Essential Credentials from 1998 EX 2001. This one's out of 79. There's 101 total. There's 22 reds. They're kind of reds, I don't know exactly, magentas, whatever you want to call them. And the green is out of 79 for a total of 101, depending on the number on the checklist. He's number 79 on the checklist, which is why he has 79 of the nows. The futures, what the red is called, that is why those are there. So those are my pickups the last year or two. And I actually have a really big one coming in that the reason I'm making this video is I wanted to give an update. It is just like this, but significantly more hard to find. I actually picked up the Golden Anniversary Refractor out of 5. So it's 1998 Bowman Chrome. It's out of 5, extremely rare. It's sold on eBay, and I was able to track it down, and I bought it for quite a bit more, but I was able to get it. It's a PSA 8 now, and it's on its way in. Out of 5, gorgeous card. They're kind of just like one of ones, if I'm being honest. Trying to find those is incredibly difficult, but I never thought I'd have the chance, but I was able to track it down, and luckily the buyer of it, who paid $750 on eBay, was willing to move it to me for a slight premium. So, all right, let's jump into the things I learned while targeting all of these cards. The very first thing is research. Sounds dumb, sounds so dumb, but research is critical for these cards. Understanding what sets are numbered to what sets are more sought after by collectors. You may just want to buy the cards you like. For example, the Radiance card, I don't know why. This is one of my favorite looking cards out there. I love the Radiant set. It's a valuable set, but it looks really similar to the PMG, right? But the PMG is worth probably 10, 20, 30 times more than that Radiance card. So it's good understanding what cards are worth what cards are rare, what cards have been altered, what cards might have backdoor copies. All of that is incredibly important. So make sure you do tons and tons of research. And also do research before you buy, because you might jump into it and there's so many cool cards to go after and you spend too much money right away, or you buy the wrong card. All those things can be tough. Here's a lesson I learned buying this card. So Bye Bye Baby Cards, Andy, he is a collector on Instagram. He has one of the best 90s collections you'll ever see. That sounds dramatic, but go check out his page. He has a ton of these Star Rubies. These Star Rubies are really tough to find. In my opinion, they're some of the coolest cards from this era. I would say it's a top 5 card. And it took a ton of time talking to him and, just explaining to him how much I want this card, reaching out 3, 4, 5 times, not like annoyingly, maybe it's a little annoying for Andy, but reaching out just periodically and saying, hey, I'm still interested. Is that available? Doing so is important to have those connections and know where cards are. That's a big one, because if you know where the cards are, that's the first battle with these 90s cards. They don't show up. But if you know where they are, you can reach out and you can make those connections. And then if they ever want to move it, then there's always the chance you could pick it up for your PC, which is big. I know where like 3 or 4 of these are. Same with the 24 karat golds. Only 24 of them exist, but I know where like 4 of them are, which is pretty good, honestly, for that type of card. So that's the second thing I want to say, is just make sure you're making connections. The next lesson I want to talk about is one I learned with this card. This is a Red Crusade. Red Crusades are some of the most sought after. Some people would say they're the most sought after. This out of 25. And you can see that 5 stamp is off center. It's up and weird. And when I was buying this was a raw card. It had damage on this bottom corner, which is why it's a 7. If it didn't have that, it might even be close to a 10. But when I was looking to purchase it, I was concerned about that stamping. And this is a big deal. Beckett in the past, no offense to Beckett, has created a lot of cards that are fake. They'll be fakes, and then they have stamping that might be off. There's things about them that might be wrong, or they're backdoor copies. Like this could be a backdoor and someone adds that stamp later. PSA is a lot better at detecting those fakes. They're not perfect. They don't get them all, but Beckett in particular does a tough job. And so I was looking over and over and over, trying to identify if the stamping was accurate, if the font was correct, if the color of the foil was correct, all of these things. And so you got to just be careful when you're buying these cards. Just because it's out there and it has a stamp doesn't mean it's legitimate. So just make sure you do your due diligence and understanding what the sets look like. Reach out to those that are very knowledgeable and say, hey, does this look right to you? And they can help you out. That's another big one with connections as well. So for this next lesson I learned, here is a 1999 PMG. PMGs, precious metal gems, are some of the most expensive basketball and football cards. And baseball, it's kind of the same way. I know the Bonds PNG is like $40,000. And I bet you the Griffey's probably up there too. I know the Jeter's probably up there too. But either way, this is a 1999 PMG. So the second year PMGs, I actually think they're kind of better looking in some ways. They have their pros and cons. But this card, the asking price initially was like $2,000 or $3,000. And that was just too much, right? And so that's one challenge you'll face with these 90s cards, is you may track down a card that you can never find, but then it's just too much money. And so you have two choices. If it's really rare, like it's a card you'll never see again, let's say it's going to be like a 1 of 1 or the golden anniversary out of 5 that I showed earlier, then sometimes it's okay to give into the demands. Other times, with something like this, there's times where it's just rare enough where they pop up once every year or two, maybe further away, maybe every 3, 4, 5 years, but you might want to wait. And so I waited, and the deal I dealt with on this was very fair, really good friend of mine, but he wanted a higher price, and then one went on auction and it sold for like $900, so he landed on like $1,100 for this card, right? And so it's one of those things where don't always give into demands. Yes, it's sometimes worth doing, which I'll talk about in a moment, but just sometimes be patient and then just explain the rationale, like, okay, well, this is the second year PMG, the first year went for this price and this one's less desired, I think it should be this. Work with people. If they're a fair dealer, they'll make it worth your while. Ironically, the next tip is going to be, don't be afraid to pay over comps if you really believe in the card. And this is going to be in regards to that golden anniversary card. So that one sold for $750. I had a saved search for it, but I didn't buy it fast enough. And because of that, I was really bummed. Then I found out who owned it, which is Bleecker Street Cards, and he posted it on his story. And props to him for working with me to get a deal done that was reasonable and not taking too advantage of me on it. I did pay almost double, probably, of what it actually sold for, but he was willing to work with me and he helped me get it for my PC, which is a card that I have wanted for a long time and just missed. One of those cards where it's like, yeah, I know it sold for $750 just barely, but at the same time, that's okay. That's okay, I'm paying way more because you don't have a chance at that card again. And that's one hard thing with 90s cards, because even though the card's out of 5, that situation makes sense. But for other players, like the more collected players and even Larry Walker, the better inner circle Hall of Famers, even a Red Crusade can be tough to find. Even these, mere golds or the refractor die cuts from the embossed refractors from 1997 Finest can be tough to find. So it's worth overpaying a little bit. Another lesson that I learned from 90s cards, this is a good example, is even though a card may be out of 100, it's not actually out of 100. For whatever reason, a lot of these cards get lost to time. That's one beauty of the 1990s and these inserts, is they were always valuable, yes, but not to the level they are now. And a lot of kids were opening these packs. These incredibly rare cards like the Star Quest Gold of Larry Walker, they did not come from really high-end sets. They came from low-end sets. Some of them came from high-end, but most were mid to low-end sets. And because of that, kids were pulling them. They were throwing them into boxes. In the 1990s and early 2000s, baseball cards aren't what they are now. People weren't always saying, oh, this will be worth a ton of money. They had them in their binders. They had them in their collections. Parents threw them away just like they did back in the 50s and 60s. And so these cards just don't appear. And these Star Quests are a really good example of that. This card, I think, again, it's a PSA like pop like 3, and no player has more than like 7 or 8. I think Derek Jeter has the most, even though the card's numbered to 100. So just be aware that if a card is numbered to a specific number, even like out of the 24 carats, those might be floating around more because it was a more high-end set, the Fleer Brilliance. But that is one key thing to be aware of, is these cards, they might not pop up again. And so even though it's really not super rare according to the serial numbering, according to modern standards, they are rare, is kind of what I wanted to point out. Speaking of this 24 karat, the way I purchased this particular card, if I can find it, there it is, was I had been reaching out to a bunch of collectors who had them, and nobody would sell them. I knew where 3 or 4 were, and nobody would sell me their 24 karat gold. This is probably my favorite 1990s parallel, I would argue. And because of that, I had to turn to just hoping one to get listed on eBay. Sure enough, one popped up for $1,500 on eBay, and I reached out to the seller, or maybe it was a little bit more than that. Either way, I reached out to the seller on Instagram because his Instagram and eBay handle was the same, and I was like, hey, let's do this deal. And so we were able to work out a deal with a little better pricing on Instagram and get a little deal done. We both saved a little bit of money, and it just worked out really well. So it's one of those things, don't be afraid to reach out to those individuals on eBay. I worked out with Chipper's Cards, who's a pretty big eBay seller of a lot of these cards as well, these 1990s cards. I worked out some deals with him as well. And so you can find these collectors and dealers on Instagram, and they're usually more willing to make deals if you buy bulk from them there, or if you do trades, which I've done done with Chipper's cards as well. And so it's one of those things where that's a huge advantage you have, is if you can communicate easily through social media. I know for some who watch this don't have Instagram, that's a challenge. I would recommend just starting one and then finding like-minded collectors. That's the next tip I'll just start into. Find like-minded collectors. This could be Facebook groups. This could be on Instagram. You create your own group chats. Find someone like Andy. Don't bombard Andy with messages, please. But if you want to find like-minded collectors, it's a great place to do so. And that can be a really easy way to find where these cards are located or if they're legitimate, all these things. It'll help you with negotiations on cards on eBay, all of that as well. Here's the next tip that may be surprising. Don't buy a card just because everyone else likes it. I bought this card because I like it. I like PMGs, I think they're cool, and I think this design is cool. I'm gonna turn this light off really quick so you can see the background design better. This is a mountain background in Colorado, which I think is awesome. And this set did this in particular where they use like real world imagery. And so the Barry Bonds, that one has the Golden Gate Bridge in the background. Chipper Jones is in a cornfield. And so I thought that was cool. Plus the scope design is really nice looking. And so I love this set. There's a different set though called the Circa Rave, and they have these cards are called Super Raves. Out of 25, they're very rare. I don't like them. I don't think they're cool. I don't love the design. And so for some people, that is like their holy grail. That is the grail they chase. And the main difference is kind of the font changes. And so that is what they're really looking for. But for me, it doesn't do much. And so it's one of those things where don't buy a card just because somebody else likes that card. I understand like the legacy of the Super Rave, and I'll probably get one eventually, but I'm not going to pay a massive premium for it. That's what I recommend as well. Target the cards you like that you think are cool looking, because that's a great way just to make sure like you aren't just someone going after everything, even though you don't care about it and your budget's getting stretched thin. Target what makes you tick and what you like. Here's an example of the opposite of that. So it's bad advice that I didn't follow. This one was just super significant. These essential credentials, in some people's eyes, these are the best cards of the 1990s. And for some, these are the best cards ever made, literally for some players. I talked about the Gem Masters 1 of 1 from 1999 Metal Universe. For some players, like those like a Barry Bonds, who's number 1 on the checklist, he only has 1 of them, making it a 1 of 1. Maybe he's number 2. I think it's Alex Rodriguez that's number 1. Either way, it's one of those things where the lower they are on the checklist, the other version, either the now or the future, is going to be more rare. So again, this is out of 79 because it's the card number 79. But if he was card number 1, there would only be 1 of these made. Or if he was 2 or 3, there'd be 2 or 3 of them made. And so these can be very expensive and hard to find. At the flip end of that, if someone is card number 99, then they have for the future, which is the red version, only 1 or 2 of those. And so those can become very valuable. Either way, that's a tangent. This is a card I did not understand how cool they were until I held them in the hand and I understood why they were the way that they were. And so that's one thing advice I would recommend. If you can find them in person, if you're unsure, check out the way they look in the light, check out the way you think they look, and that can be a really great way to say, yes, I do like this card. I do want to add one of my favorite player. One quick note, make sure if you're using sniping technology, this is something that happened to me, this is for any situation, make sure that you actually set it and it is working accurately. Recently, I was going after a totally certified platinum gold out of 30, really rare card, and they don't pop up, they're out of 30. Some players, it's like some of their most sought after cards as well. Mine was a Larry Walker. I had a snipe for like $500 and it ended at $250 or $300 or so, and I was really excited because I won it, but for whatever reason, the snipe didn't go through and I did not win that card. Last public sale was a long time ago, and I don't know if I'll ever see one again. So it's one of those things, just be careful, make sure that when they do pop up, you jump on them. That is a big one for 90s cards, is if they pop up, make sure you take advantage of the opportunity. I think it was Barry Larkin, his Crusade Red, which I showed of Larry Walker, which is this one here out of 25, hadn't showed up in like 20 years or never publicly sold. His was the Call to Arms, which aren't as cool looking as these in my opinion, but that card ended up going for like $5,000 or $6,000 because they just don't pop up, and the Barry Larkin collectors at the time were really excited about it and they really went after it. So that's a big thing I'd recommend as well, is that there's a card of a player you love that is super rare. The moment that's gone, you may not have a chance for years to get that card back. And the last tip I'd recommend is make sure you educate yourself. When you talk about research, that's always done through forums like Reddit or Blowout or other places as well, Facebook groups or Instagram messaging or watching YouTube videos. But YouTube videos, I think, are very helpful. Precious Metal Gents, I don't know if they're posting anymore. I don't know if they're coming back anytime, but they're one that really helped me love these 1990s cards. They did a good job. Tan Man Baseball Fan is one I listened to. That did a really good job. That kind of sold me on the idea of these cards being collected. But find really good educational pieces and mediums that you like, whether it's YouTube channels, and I know there's a ton of great ones. I just don't know them super well myself off the top of my head. And digest that content, and it's going to teach you and help you understand this era more than just looking at eBay listings and trying to figure that out. So that's my advice. Those are some pieces of advice on these cards and things I've learned. I would call myself a 90s collector now. Maybe I'll have to go after some of the better cards, the better players. Not saying Larry Walker isn't great. He's a Hall of Famer, the best Canadian baseball player of all time, in my opinion. But it's one of those things where I understand it, man. I get it. I get the appeal of these cards. They're beautiful. They have so much different ideas behind them than just Topps reprinting the same stuff every single year. It's awesome when a PMG, there's only 2 of them ever made, and they're some of the most valuable cards. And that's something we're missing today in modern baseball. So let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are, and if this was helpful. If you'd like to see more 90s content, let me know. And other than that, I'll see you in the next video.